Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. Charles Hammaker here. We're not at the news desk today because this isn't Circling Seattle Sports on Converge weekly episode. We have an interview for you. I know we did an interview here in the Black Media Matters studio before, but we're kind of in a new situation, new digs in a way. I'm joined here today by a very special guest of mine, kind of a friend of mine, I'd say, since the Kraken season really began. Everett Fitzhugh is here in studio with me today, the first African-American full-time broadcaster in the NHL, I believe so, and the only black play-by-play announcer at any professional level in North America. Obviously, we'd like to see that change, but, I think I saw a quote from you that said, you never set out to be a trailblazer, right? But at the end of the day, what you're doing is special, and just, I think, what echoes in my mind is always representation matters, and you've talked about it, where there's, some little boy or some little girl out there that sees you, and they says, I want to do that. I want to be in the NHL one day, whether it's, in the booth, in operations, on the ice, so welcome to the studio. How are we doing today? Obviously, we've been talking about it on the show, but the off-season's been a bit busy for our friend Ron Francis and the team itself. What has Everett been up to? How has father life been treating you?
Everett's doing well, man. Thank you for having me. Honestly, this is a huge honor, and I've heard and I've read so much about what you guys do over here, and it's a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you today. So thank you very much for that. This summer's been crazy, man. My wife and I just welcomed our first kid, baby boy Wesley. So he's hanging out, actually 8 weeks, 8 weeks old. So he's running around and causing all types of trouble. But I couldn't be happier. I tell folks all the time, there was 2 goals that I had for myself when I was younger. Number 1, I wanted to make it to the NHL, and number 2, I wanted to be a father. And to be able to accomplish both of those things in a little less than 2 years. I mean, I'm playing with house money for the rest right now, right? Like I'm good. I can sail off into the sunset a happy man. So, but yeah, it's been a busy summer, just trying to keep up with him. And you're obviously recovering from that first season, and you're taking all of the lessons and everything that you learned from your first year in the NHL and trying to find a way to get better. So it's been busy, family first, but now as we get ready to turn August, we only have 45 some odd days till camp starts. So, geez, it's getting close, man. It's getting close.
We had Dev Camp, and he gives you a small taste of what's going to be there, but certainly looking forward to that. I'm sure you might be a little bit excited to teach Wesley about the power play here soon, or maybe it's about picking up a baseball, which we'll get into in a second.
Yeah.
But so. Want to encapsulate sort of the career here of Everett Fitzhugh. You want to look at the general scape of things. Some people might not know it. Maybe they will because of some posts. You've got a Mariners hoodie on here and there, make some appearances at T-Mobile Park. Going back to growing up, what sports were you involved in growing up? Whether I'm assuming baseball is one of them, but where did sports begin for you? Because was hockey there to begin with? Was that something that you picked up? How has your sports evolution really grown throughout the years?
So I've always been a sports fan, right? Like I've always been a major sports fan. A little personal background about me. So I'm an only child of a single mom. I was adopted, actually. So growing up, it was me and it was my mom. I didn't have any siblings, so I had to entertain myself, right? So how did I do that? I got into what every kid gets into, video games and sports. So I was a huge sports fan growing up in Detroit. So we had all 4 pro sports: Pistons, Lions, Tigers, Red Wings. So that's where it started for me, is those hometown teams. And actually, I grew up a massive baseball fan. I still am a very big baseball fan. Football was a bit too dangerous to play. Mom was like, no, we're not putting you in pads, young fella. And then hockey, it was a little cost prohibitive. Not really accessible, which we'll talk about a bit later on. So hockey was kind of one of my interests from afar. I never really played it, but I did have like a street hockey set. I had a couple of nets at home, so I'd shoot tennis balls, in the garage, that kind of thing. But I wasn't really playing any organized hockey as a kid. I played basketball for a hot second, but baseball was my sport. That was my favorite sport. I played baseball from the time I was, I want to say 4, so T-ball up until about 16 years old. So I played in various city leagues and all of that, but I knew that the Detroit Tigers weren't going to draft me anytime soon. So I decided to turn my attention to a career in sports, and I knew that I'd always wanted to work in sports, right? I didn't know what I wanted to be. You may be a little bit too young for this reference, but Stuart Scott. I wanted to be Stuart Scott on the Sports Center desk. That was going to be my dream job. I didn't even know play-by-play was an option until I got to college. I thought, the guys like Dave Niehaus and Rick Riz and all the greats that you hear, I thought they were just, built in a lab somewhere and like, here's a microphone. So, I didn't even know how to get involved with play-by-play. And it wasn't until college when that happened. But so sports has been a huge part of my life growing up. Even to this day, I still, my happy place, even though I work in hockey, I love hockey, I love what I do. My happy place is going to a baseball game, buying an outfield ticket, having a couple of beers and a hot dog, and just sit. That's my church. Going to a baseball game. That is what I enjoy doing.
See that, as I've told you, as someone who, my father instilled that love of baseball very early on, and obviously with our ball club in Seattle, there have been the tough times, and so. But at the end of the day, covering all these sports is great, but baseball always has a way to find itself back in my heart. So
I feel bad for Mariners fans, though. I do. Listen, 21 years. That is a very, very long time. As a Tigers fan, the Tigers at least went to a couple of World Series in my lifetime. The Tigers at least have made the playoffs a couple of times. But man, I cannot imagine a 20+ year drought. Although I will say I am a Lions fan, and the Lions are 0-9 in the playoffs in my lifetime. So I'm 33 years old, and the Lions have made the playoffs 9 times, and they've lost each of those games. So that's where my pain sits deep down, is with the Detroit Lions.
Well, at least, we in both regards, right, we can hope that brighter pastures are ahead for both of those organizations.
I was at the Seahawks-Lions game this year here in Seattle, actually, and man, that game was over before it started. It was raining. It was January 2nd. It was cold. It was raining. I was with a couple of buddies of mine, and I couldn't even tell you what the final score was. I know it was a lot to a little, Seattle, so.
It's cool to me, at least to pick at that regard, to see the different, whether it's media or even different athletes at these other Seattle sports games. I know in the Seahawks regard, I believe it was Uchenna Nwosu was at a Storm game. DK Metcalf at a Storm game. Different guys at the Kraken games. Nico Ladero with the Sounders at Kraken games. Some of the Reign players, our Reign players here in Seattle at the Kraken game. So it's really cool to see that in my regard, whether it's people in media or just the other, Seattle supporting Seattle. That helps my heart a little bit. I know, to go back to it, you talked about hockey being cost prohibitive, and I know that's still an issue that a lot of people face. But you talked about the street hockey set. Where were some of those early memories of hockey? Because I believe in an interview you were saying that when you were growing up, the Red Wings were winning cups. And I believe it was an interview that you guys did, you and JT did with Phillip and Riley and Colin, and you talked about how that was a white boy sport, and obviously that's, even in both regards, in baseball and hockey, working to change that, right? But what were the first sort of memories? Was it watching the Red Wings on TV, playing in the playing with the street set? How did that early hockey memory sort of form for you?
Well, I think it was the Red Wings winning. When you're 8 years old, when you're a kid, you want to latch on to a winner. You know what I mean? Nothing's more fun than winning. So when I was a kid growing up, I was, my friends, they weren't hockey fans, right? They were basketball fans. They were football fans. And you're right. I got made fun of all the time. Oh, why you like hockey? Why you like that white boy sport? Why are you trying to be one of them white boys? And I love the game. And honestly, because the Red Wings were so good, the whole city was behind the Wings. Didn't matter if you were black, if you were white, what race, religion, whatever you were, the entire city were Red Wings fans. So they won back-to-back cups in 97, 98. They were one of the best teams in the NHL from 96 on until about 2004, and then they picked it up again probably 2008. But for me, it wasn't until I actually saw a Red Wings and Edmonton Oilers game that I found my place in hockey. Edmonton at the time had 2 black players on their team, Mike Greer and George LaRocque. So for me, that was huge. I remember watching that game, and I was running throughout the house like, Mom, there's 2 black guys on TV. They're playing hockey. It was so cool. It was so exciting for me to see people who look like me playing a game that historically I was told I wasn't allowed to play. I wasn't allowed to be a fan of. So that's how I became a hockey fan. That's how I became an Oilers fan. I mean, even though the Red Wings were my team, my hometown team, I could relate to the Edmonton Oilers.
Yes.
Fast forward a couple of years later, they add Anson Carter. So now you have 3 black players on one team, and then through the late 90s, 98, 9, up and through maybe 2005, those early 2000s, late 90s Oilers teams, they probably had 5 to 7 black players within their organization who played for the team. So that's huge to have 7 black players in your organization in less than 10 years. So for me, that was the first time that I felt that hockey was a place for people who look like me, a place for black kids. And it didn't matter if I didn't know how to play. I didn't learn how to skate till I was 21 years old in college. So I never played organized hockey growing up. But I was a huge student of the game. I was a big fan of the game. And like I said, it helps when your hometown team is a winner. So if not for the fact the Red Wings were winning, I don't know if I would be sitting here right now, because I was in 3rd grade. All my friends played hockey. All my friends in class. I went to a pretty diverse Catholic school, private school back in Michigan. So, I had black kids in my class, white kids in my class, Asian kids I had everybody in my class. So a lot of my friends, a lot of my classmates played hockey. They watched hockey. So I was like, all right, I'll go home and try this hockey thing out. And sure enough, I saw the Oilers, and I was like, yep, this is for me. I am allowed in this space because I saw those 2 and then ultimately 3 guys playing at the highest level.
That is, I mean, that just goes back to it, representation. Yeah. It's so great to see that.
It's huge.
Incredible. And, you talk about, the Red Wings winning those cups, and just having the whole city behind it. It is always amazing to me in these sports, whether it's obviously the Kraken in their inaugural year, people wearing the sweaters everywhere, the colors everywhere, the Mariners doing well whenever they're doing well. That last part of the season last year, the entire city was, the Compass Rose was everywhere. The Seahawks, when they won the Super Bowl and they're going to that second one, you saw Seahawks logos everywhere. So when that success is there, obviously people pay attention. And what was big to me last year with baseball, right? And we talk about both baseball and hockey being sports that may in popularity lag behind football, basketball in this country, right? Just really trying to pass it along to those kids going to those games, 161 through 160 through 162 last year. The closest thing to playoff baseball that they had, and I know for a lot of people in like 95, 96 when the Mariners were doing that, that's how they started. That's how like long time fans began with, so you kind of want to give, I guess, kids that little taste of winning at least, because it's great to have a team, but maybe like you were saying, you latch on to a winner and they're fans for life.
And I think that's the cool thing about sports too, right? Because everything else in terms of a mass popularity, whether it be politics, whether it be religion, whether it be whatever, everything else has the potential to divide us, right? Sports is the one thing that no matter your beliefs, no matter what side of the aisle you vote on, no matter what type of music you listen to, sports is the one thing that brings people together. And we can always find that common ground of sports and going to a game. And it's the romance of it, right? It's I went to baseball games with my dad as a kid. It's I was taught how to shoot a hockey puck. My growing up, I didn't have a father growing up, but my mom, she threw the baseball with me. Like I have some memories of that, right? So it's so cool how much of a hold sports can have and how much of an impact and an influence that sports can have on not only kids, but like you said, an entire community. You know what I mean? I being from the Midwest, I've got friends from obviously Detroit, Cleveland, Chicago, Pittsburgh, very proud, strong sports towns, right? College football, high school football, like that reigns supreme where I'm from. So, but when you come out to Seattle, people don't think Seattle as a sports town. This is an outdoorsy place. We're kind of tucked up in the corner of the country. But then when you come out here, you're like, man, the Seattle is Detroit. It is Cleveland. It is Chicago. It is just as passionate about their sports teams, regardless of how they're doing. They are as passionate about their sports teams as some of those other towns you hear about. So it's the romance about sports that I think attracts so many people, including myself, to this area.
I mean, you talk about, I guess I'm spoiled in a way, because seeing those crowds, hearing that roar, 18,000 in Climate Pledge Arena. I mean, this past weekend, 30 plus at minimum the last 3 games for the Mariners. You know, just it's so many stories to be told, and that's why I love. You'll see me crack a big dumb smile hearing you talk about how you came up with this, and the memories that were formed that helped bring you here today, because there's like so many stories similar to that or in some sort of vein just out that door, in the sports world, the great unifier in a way. So I know you talked on it. You said, when you found out the Tigers probably weren't going to draft you, you had to look in the world of sports, but not necessarily playing. And in a way, that was for me too. As much as I love baseball, I could play center field, but I couldn't hit the damn ball. So, that became an issue. It's like, all right, I want to stay in this world though, right? I don't want to leave it quite yet. I'm not leaving the party yet. And, journalism, just interviews, all of that I just wanted to be involved, with the people in it. For you in broadcast, I know you've worked in media relations as well. How did that first start for you? Because I know you talked about not necessarily knowing about broadcast until college, I believe. When did you take those first steps to say, all right, let's try this broadcast thing out. Let's try, being involved with, some of this minor league junior hockey. How did that all come to play, or did it begin before that with broadcast? It
began in college, and it began completely by accident. I was actually, and here comes baseball again. I was sitting in my dorm room. At Bowling Green. Bowling Green State University is where I went to school in Ohio. And I was watching the playoffs. The Tigers and A's were playing. And a good friend of mine, still one of my best friends to this day, comes to my room and he says, "Hey, you wanted to be in broadcasting, right? Like you talk about sports." I'm like, "Yeah." He says, "Well, there's a group that I heard about. I'm going to a meeting. I don't want to go by myself. Come with me." I was like, "Tigers playing." He's like, "Boy, get off the couch." So I'm like, "All right, fine." Got off the couch. And I went to this group. It's called Bowling Green Radio Sports Organization. So for me, being 17-year-old freshman in college, this was my dream. Bunch of nerdy dudes sitting around talking sports. Like I was in heaven, right? So I liked what I heard, kept coming back week after week. I got my feet wet doing intermission hosting. I did some halftime shows for football and basketball. I did board hopping for football games and basketball games. And then I went to actually my first hockey game ever in person I went to as a fan was in college. So I'd never actually been to a hockey game in person before. I only ever watched it on TV. So January comes around, my freshman year, January comes around, and we had a hockey game that weekend or the next weekend, and we were looking for volunteers. So the way that our group worked is that the student station provided broadcasters for women's basketball and hockey, and then the university contracted men's basketball and football out to a professional, whatever. So we had the hockey program. So they were looking for volunteers to do hockey games as a color analyst because we had a full-time play-by-play. So you did color. And there were probably 3 people in the entire group who were hockey fans. So they were looking for a volunteer. No one raised their hand. So I was like, hey, I'll do it. Like I know enough about it to be dangerous. And that's how I got my first broadcast. So I was against the University of Alaska Fairbanks, January 28th, 27th, 2007. So I remember like it was yesterday. It's my first ever broadcast. And I step into the press box and I fall in love. I fall in love with broadcasting with broadcasting hockey. You get up there, it's so professional. Everyone is in suits, and everyone is so on point. And it was the first time that I stepped into a space and I was like, man, like I got goosebumps just picturing where this could lead. Because it was so buttoned up, because it was so, it was so cool. I felt like I was a part of this exclusive club, being a part of Bowling Green hockey broadcasts, which is awesome. So I did that game. I felt pretty good about it. I kept doing some more color assignments, and then my sophomore year came along. I did even more. My junior year, so my third year in school, I started doing high school hockey play-by-play because I had a feeling that the varsity team play-by-play job was going to come open at the end of the year. So I was the primary lead color analyst for our hockey team, and then I probably racked up another 5 to 10 high school hockey games. So then the summer leading into my senior year, my fourth year, I ended up being a fifth-year senior. So the summer leading into my fourth year of college, the play-by-play job did open up. And it was me and my best friend. We were the only two going after the job. And we were neck and neck. And we were both, I mean, he was a very, very talented broadcaster. And I don't know if they flipped a coin or what. But it went to me. Wow. I got the job, and that's how it happened. So my fourth year in school, my senior year, my fifth year in school, so my lap year, my victory lap, and then my first year out of school. So 3 total years I was play-by-play for Bowling Green. And then I got after that happened, I was applying for jobs, and this is kind of when I learned about all of the other duties as assigned when it came to working in sports. I applied for a job. I was in the final 2 interviews for this team in Bakersfield, California, and I didn't get the job. And it was because I didn't have a lot of the PR experience, a lot of the media relations stuff. I didn't know how to build a website. I could barely write a press release, right? So it was a lot of those things. I was a good broadcaster, but when you work in sports, there's a lot more than just showing up calling games. So then I was kind of toiling around back home in Detroit, working a few odd jobs here or there. Buddy of mine called me in Chicago, told me about a junior hockey league that was looking for a marketing PR person in their league office. So I applied, got the job, and the rest is history. That was my first job ever working in hockey. I was there for a year and a half, but I was missing being on the air. I missed that broadcast piece. I really enjoyed the PR side of things. I enjoyed creating from a digital standpoint, from a content standpoint, but I missed being back on the microphone. So there was a team in the USHL, the league I worked for, in Youngstown, Ohio, that needed a broadcaster. Applied for the job, got the job there. 1 year in Youngstown, went to Cincinnati, Ohio, worked in Cincy for 5 years, and now I'm here. So I've spent most of my adult life in Ohio. As much as I love the Midwest, I was pretty happy to experience something new. So I'm a Midwesterner born and bred, and I've got very fond memories of my time there. But it's nice to kind of be, in a different place. Yeah. Culturally, geographically, it's nice to be outside of that little Midwestern bubble I grew up in.
And then before I let you get away from that,
no, what do you got?
We got your
a lot to digest there. I know I kind of went.
No, I gotcha. We're looking at senior time with the Phantoms and the Cyclones there, but it is interesting to me to hear about, as much as you've got the broadcast skill, I need you to be able to, be involved with the PR, be involved with the media relations. And even now with Seattle, obviously sightseeing with Fitz, we'll talk about that in a bit. The different events that you're a busy man. So I want to revisit sort of that part of it talking about. I know we're trying to get away from the Midwest here in a way, but so the media relations side of Everett, what memories do you take from that? Maybe it's, because head of PR, I believe it was in Cincinnati. Yeah. How was that for you? Because again, broadcast is obviously the main event here. I guess the main course. But what memories do you take from being media relations? Because I know with working in media, having to talk to media relations people, how different was that for you? How much do you maybe miss from it, or is it just kind of that was part of it? in that aspect of my life, and now I've kind of moved on a bit. Do you try to leave that part away, or is there any part of it that maybe you looked at as a valuable learning experience, I guess?
Oh, it was huge. It was huge. And for me, the fact that I was able to learn the PR side of it and be more than just a broadcaster, be a PR director, learn how to run a press conference, learn how to put videos together, whether it be graphic design. I'm not very good at it. I've got a very, very rudimentary level of experience in that. But it was huge because I'm not here without it. I think all of those areas, the other duties as assigned portion of your job description, when you are able to get those type of skills, it helps you in so many other areas. So for me, for instance, when I was in Youngstown, I was broadcast, PR, social media, digital, marketing. I did a little bit of sales. I was the mascot on a couple of occasions. So I got 7 hats right there, right?
Not even, no Zamboni work?
They wouldn't let me do it. I wanted to so bad, they wouldn't let me do it. I sang the anthem actually once. I did.
Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
I had to sing the anthem. I sang the anthem once when I was in Youngstown. So
Swiss Army knife right there.
Exactly.
Goodness.
So then I get to Cincinnati. A lot of the same thing, right? Broadcast, PR, social media. I was on the marketing team. I did team services, so I booked all of our travel, hotels, bus schedules, per diem, meals on the road. I was also the mascot. No anthem there. I almost had to fill in for our PA guy one time. But you wear all of those hats because you're working with smaller front offices. You're working with very tight staffs with tight budgets, so you have to be able to do a lot of things. And for me, I don't want to come off as bragging here, but it was something that I took very seriously, and it was something that I enjoyed doing so much so that my second year in Youngstown, I was awarded the PR Director of the Year for the ECHL. So it was an area for me that, sitting here right now today, I definitely do miss it. I love what I get to do. I love my broadcast, and now this is the dream, right?
Yes.
You're able to focus on your passion. You're able to focus on the one thing that you love to do. But I kind of miss those 15-hour days. I get to the rink at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. in the morning. You've got all of your pregame skates. You do your interviews there. You get your game notes done. I might take an hour nap in my office if I have time. And then your game's at 7:30, right? So, I get to the rink at 9 a.m. If I'm home by midnight, that's a great day. And you have to do that 36 times a year. It's a grind for sure, and I did for 5 years. So I think the thing that I miss the most is the grind. The relationships that you build, knowing that, hey, we're all in this together. There's only 10 of us here, 12 of us in this office. We're all doing this together. That said, I wouldn't change. I wouldn't trade this opportunity in Seattle for anything. You know what I mean? You go through all of that to get to this point. And having now gone through my first year in the NHL, you get to see how the other half lives. And this is something that dreams are made of. I've been wanting to be in this chair for 15 years now, something like that. And to be able to finally accomplish that, you look back on those hard times. You look back on the grind. You look back on the long days, and you're like, man, was it worth it? Then absolutely it was worth it, because it helped mold you and it helped to shape you into a more well-rounded person. Like I said before, I'm more than just a broadcaster. I'm more than just a radio guy because of all the different hats I've had to wear throughout my career.
Jeez, I like being at the morning skates myself, but geez, the long days, goodness gracious.
Well, and our PR staff right now, too, that's what they do, minus the play-by-play, right? The thing about the NHL that is so great, I wore the hats of 6, 7 different people. We have 14 people, 15 people wearing the hats of 5 people, right? So each department has got multiple folks within it. So that just allows you to be the best of what you do. When you can have 3 PR people, 2 social people. We have an entire graphics, digital video department that is awesome. They've won awards and have been recognized. So, I guess it's a double-edged sword, because when you're at that minor league level, it's like, man, how'd you do so much? Man, that's awesome. But then when you get up here, you're like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be done. And the fact that I get to go to work every day with amazing people who can create and who are so good and so great at what they do, it makes it all, it kind of puts a lot in perspective for you, and it makes you feel, A, the grind was worth it to get to this point, but B, now you can focus on what makes you great and what you do well, and for me, that is being a broadcaster.
So, whenever the Kraken mascot comes around, are you saying you're not going to put your hat in the ring?
I'm going to put my hat as far away from that ring as I'm not even going to buy a hat for that ring. I'm not even going to buy a ticket for that ring. Yeah, no, I was so when I was in Youngstown, we had our mascot was Sparky. It was a big dragon. And so seeing a big 6-foot dragon coming at you, I had to do a summer street festival. It was 95 degrees, and like, if you've been, 95 degrees in Ohio is a lot different than 95 degrees in Seattle. It's humid, it is wet, it is hot, it's that just oppressive, thick, soupy heat. So you're in this big foam mascot costume. Ugh. Terrible. And then in Cincinnati, we were the Cyclones, so our mascot was a big twister. Yep. Luckily, I was only the mascot for a couple of videos. I didn't have to do any
street fairs,
appearances. Yeah, but again, Youngstown, Cincinnati, same thing. It's hot in Cincinnati, and I do not envy a mascot what they have to do in some of that heat down there.
Yeah, geez. Well, we'll take the plane here to Seattle. It was really interesting reading about how the job came to be for you, because I believe it was Mike Emmerich actually made a good recommendation for you. I believe it was with Ron. I believe, I could be wrong. No, I believe it was Todd Lewicki. My apologies. And I think it was that you thought the email from him was fake at first.
Yes.
What do you think? Was it I get back to the desk one day and there's an email in my inbox and you're like, this looks fake, I'm not. How did that all take place? Because obviously, you talk about the NHL being the whole goal here, and even enjoying, though, parts of, I guess the minor league level.
Yeah.
Is it like, hey, this is really happening, or this is a new opportunity, I've got to prepare myself, I got to get out to Seattle, this is a city that has some hockey history, but it's been a while. Right. How does that whole moment for you to come to Seattle and take that job unfold? Because obviously, too, to go back to what we said at the top of the interview, you don't go out and try to be, a trailblazer. Is that something you think about, or are you just trying to wrap your head around what's going on at the moment?
Yeah, as far as the job goes, it was, again, completely random, and so Ryan Clark, who writes for The Athletic, he wrote an article about me as the only African-American play-by-play announcer at any level of hockey. So unbeknownst to me, Todd Lewicki, our CEO, read the article. And then I came back to my desk one day, and I saw an email from Todd Lewicki. And first of all, the CEO of an NHL team just doesn't email you directly. Right? It's usually not, right? So that was my first tip off. And I tell this story all the time, and Todd loves it. So that was number one. I thought it was people in my office playing a joke on me. I was like, all right, you guys, thanks, appreciate it, whatever. So I'm sitting there, and it's eating at me, right? Like, I'm like, man, is this real? So I asked one of my coworkers. I called mom. You got to call mom. That's first. And then my girlfriend, now my wife, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife. I was like, should I follow up with this guy? Like, this doesn't seem. And this was right before the pandemic. This was in February of 20. So literally our season shut down maybe 4 weeks later. So I'm thinking to myself, like, there's no way this can be real. So I left him sitting in my inbox for about a day and a half. So I finally replied to him, and I was like, hey, yeah, I'd love to talk to you and get to know more and whatever. Like, I'll play your game. So sure enough, I get a phone call from Todd, And it's actually Todd, and he's talking about what they're building in Seattle and how their vision. And it's just, Todd is the kind of person that can sell. He can sell sand in a desert, right? Like he is so passionate about what he's doing and about what he's building here, and you could really feel that. And we had a great conversation. He told me that, hey, you know, I'd love to know more about you. I'm going to keep my eye on you. So what we're going to do, keep going the rest of the season, keep your head down, keep doing what you're doing, and maybe we'll be back in touch.
Okay.
COVID hit. Whole world goes to hell. So, you know, our season shuts down mid-March. The whole world shuts down. You lived it. We all lived it. So I'm sitting in our living room, and we're like, my wife and I are just, we're both furloughed, we're both not working. We come back from the grocery store, and she just asked me maybe an hour earlier, like, hey, you ever follow up with that guy from Seattle? I'm like, I'm not gonna follow up with him. Like, it's a pandemic right now. They're not worried about a broadcaster. So we get back from the grocery store, and I check my email, and there's Todd. And he goes, hey, I know the whole world's kind of gone crazy right now, but, you know, we're still building for the future. And if you're interested, I'd love to put you in touch with our marketing director and get your interview process underway. And, you know, after I picked myself up off the floor, I was, yeah, okay, let's do this. So tell my wife, and she's, you know, on cloud nine. And the entire time I'm like, man, this is really happening, isn't it? This is going to happen. So we do a few Zoom interviews. They flew us both out here to Seattle to see, at the time, the big hole in the ground that was Climate Pledge Arena.
Nice little hat.
Yeah. The roof was still there. So we toured the construction site, went to the preview center. We get to see everything that was there. And again, it was so, and this just goes to show you how great of a person Todd is and how much he cares about this organization. He was trying to sell me on working for the Kraken. Do you know, like, this is a dream of mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I have to sell you on me. And he was, so, you know, we go through all that, and then I get the phone call July 14th, and my wife and I are sitting on the couch. I get the phone call from my boss, my now boss, Katie, and we're laughing, we're crying, we're holding each other. Like it was awesome. It was so cool, man. One of our owners is Jared Bruckheimer, and I got to meet him one time, and I told him, I said, I don't think you could have written a script like this story, and he got a chuckle out of that. So, but it was definitely something that was not planned. I think like myself, like every other broadcaster out there, when the NHL Seattle was announced, I sent my resume to the info general email list. So it's probably sitting out there in the cloud somewhere. But yeah, that was the story. That's how it happened. A completely by chance email from our CEO who read an article and wanted to know more. And now that I know Todd, and now that you get to see the kind of person he is the person. If he wants you, if he feels that you will bring value, he personally will email you or call you. You know, some of the stories that I've heard about how some of the folks who work for us have gotten hired involve Todd chasing someone across an ice rink because he wanted to talk to them, because he'd heard so much about them.
Yeah.
Or you know, there's a woman who works in our office. I think she's moved on now, but she was Todd and some of his friends went to dinner, and there was this lovely hostess who took care of everything, and she ended up working for the Kraken for a couple of years. So, you know, if you make an impression on Todd, he will find you, and it's been an unbelievable experience working for one of the more decorated figures in American sports history, Todd Leiweke. I mean, a lot of folks don't know. He used to be Roger Goodell's number 2 at the NFL. He worked for the Seahawks. He worked for the Sounders, the Minnesota Wild, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the PGA Tour, the Golden State Warriors. He's done it all. He's done it all in the sporting world.
So, I mean, yeah, to build on what you just said, across all those franchises, you know, championships, winning, all that, and to still Send an email out to Everett Fitzhugh. Just
Yep.
I personal email all that.
I still have it. It's in my. I still have it.
Starred or something.
Oh yeah. I'm never deleting that one. I'm never deleting that one.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So to run with that. So now the job is set. You've whether or not you signed the dotted line or however that went. Give them the old John Hancock. With the event, media relations. Obviously, during the pandemic, it's like, okay, everybody, the logo comes out, NHL Seattle, even then people were excited, right? Guessing the name and all that. What is it like from your perspective? Obviously, you come from Detroit. It's, obviously hockey, the history is rich. To see it and know that there is some hockey history here in Seattle. I know that there's, it's like, oh, hockey's here in Seattle. How great is it? I'm like, well, technically it's been here before. I'd say, I don't want to say how it's been to watch it grow here, but just to see it, I guess, sort of get a kickstart again, right? Because for the longest time, it's like, oh, you got the Thunderbirds, the Silvertips are playing up there. Some people, you see Canucks sweaters around here occasionally. What has that been like for you, I guess, to sort of see the city really grasp onto this whole thing, whether it is because you like what the jersey looks like or you really like the moves they've made this offseason or just you like hockey. And you've really started to embrace the sport like I have, just, as a guy who grew up with baseball. Yeah. What has that been like for you to witness that sort of taking place? Because, we're getting into year 2 now because this is just going to continue to grow and evolve. But, I guess through the first few years because, working in the pandemic, what has that been like for you to witness that all?
I can't even put it into words. It's indescribable. It is a once in a lifetime experience. And I tell folks all the time, I think the NHL is done expanding for a very long time. We're at 32 teams right now.
It's a good number.
League. It's a good number. You don't want to dilute the product, So for me, at least in my opinion, to be a part of the last expansion team, maybe in our lifetimes, maybe for 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, who knows, is something that you can't even put into words. And you're right, hockey is here. You've got the T-Birds, you've got the Tips. There is a proud junior hockey history here. A lot of folks don't know that the Seattle Metropolitans were the first American team to win the Stanley Cup back in 1917. So hockey fans are here. Hockey culture is here. These aren't dumb hockey fans. Like, people in Seattle are smart hockey fans. They know the game. And now being able to bring the highest level of the sport that we love to this city and be a part of that is stuff that dreams are made of. To be able to build the first 3 sheets of ice in the city of Seattle proper, up at Northgate, so that it can be a full community space and we can have learn to play, learn to skate. For us to go into various communities, whether it be in South Seattle, whether it be on the north side, wherever it be, to bring our game, our message, to see the sport growing from a grassroots level, from a youth level, all the way up, it has been remarkable. And I've been very fortunate that I've had the opportunity to lend my voice and lend my presence to a lot of the things that happened in the first couple of years, from a marketing standpoint, from a content standpoint, of spreading our message and being able to tell our story. And you get goosebumps thinking about it, because all throughout that first season, yes, I know the record wasn't where people wanted it to be, but you have to stop and think, like, man, we're making history here. We opened up a brand new building, a reimagined building. You brought a team and a sport that has not been in Seattle on a professional level since the 70s, since the 60s, 70s. And then if you go all the way back to the NHL level, 1917. So it was really remarkable. And I'll share a story that just the importance of this team and what we were able to do. I met a guy who was in his 60s, late 50s, early 60s. He's from Boston originally, and he moved out here for work 20-some-odd years ago. Big Bruins fan. And he said that every time the Bruins go play Vancouver, I spend $400, take my wife, my kids up to Vancouver, We're decked out in Bruins gear. When the Bruins beat Vancouver in the Stanley Cup back in 2011, I think it was 11, we were the loudest people in the building. I mean, it was 14. We were the loudest people in the building. It was so cool to be here. So then when Seattle announced that they were getting an NHL team, I broke down in tears because now I finally had my own team. I'd been out of Boston for 30 years, 25, 30 years, right? I'm a Bruins fan because I grew up a Bruins fan, but I wanted my own team to root for.
Yeah.
And he was getting emotional talking about the Kraken coming to Seattle and the sport that he loved and the league that he loved coming to Seattle. And that was such a cool story to hear because it's just one of the hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of stories that are in our region, that are in this country, around the world about the Seattle Kraken and how they became a fan of this team and how they became a fan and a supporter of hockey in Seattle. And to be able to be a part of that and to help tell that story has been something that I never thought I would have been able to be a part of. And now that I do find myself in it and a part of it, it again, once in a lifetime, right? It's something that not a lot of people get to do this. I think we've had 20, not that many, maybe 12, 15 expansion teams since 1992 when the Ottawa Senators came in. So to be one of 15 people in this most recent era of expansion to do this job is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the way I was thinking about it in a way was, whenever, teams do Throwback Thursdays, right, you look at the Mariners. I'm going to keep using the baseball because that's how it is. But Dave Niehaus, that voice is always going to be there. Anything Ichiro, Griffey, I mean, just some of these, what I'm getting at is, throwbacks, you're ingrained in history. And that's, it's hard to wrap your head around in a way sometimes, but
I don't want to be like a cocky person and arrogant about it, but I do think about that. Like, man, 50 years from now, when they unearth the capsule, when they do let's play back the first home win in Kraken history, it's going to be my voice on that call. Yeah. And unfortunately, I missed our first 5 games of the year because I had COVID.
Yes.
But they were all on the road. But to be able to be here for that first home win against Montreal, I remember the open to my broadcast, rivalry renewed, 100+ years rivalry renewed. That was pretty fun, actually. But to be able to be on the microphone for the first hat trick, the first shutout, the first winning streak, hopefully the first championship, whenever that comes, right? It's going to be something that, I like to stay grounded. I like to stay humble. But to think about that, I mean, you can't help but have it kind of creep in the back of your mind a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, not to, I guess, say anything about it, but I mean, you've earned your way up here, right? So I say, hey, man, live it up. Live it up. So, and then to continue with this, the inaugural season theme, I obviously the story for February 17th with you and JT, obviously huge. But, with John, the broadcast crew, I just want to say this now. The broadcast crew that we have, with this team, already, having the team is great. But to have a crew that is able to tell these stories, for people on radio who can't watch the game or maybe they're in the car and they're listening, I mean, to me, that's so valuable because teams can be as great as it is, playoffs, whatever. But if you've got people that are able to spin these stories, to tell these stories, to get you involved, to get you hooked, it's just so much more valuable. Yeah. So, kudos to that. But, obviously John steps out to do a national appearance. How different does your day look on the 17th than maybe, the radio aspect of things? Or is it not that different? Because I know that, in researching it and, finding out about how that day was going to take place, you and JT have become good friends through this, so I think you even said, I get to do a broadcast with a buddy of mine, so, I mean, does that look any different? Or because you've got that chemistry, it's like, hey, I'm doing my job, I might be on TV, but, and then you get recognized, I believe it was in Winnipeg. So that must have been cool, I don't know if you get, nervous in front of cameras ever, but, or even in front of the whole barn, right? But how different does that day look? And is it throughout the day are you thinking about it? You're like, okay, this is a broadcast, I'm doing my job. Mm-hmm. How does that go through? How does that day take place for you?
So that day was probably one of the most nerve-wracking Like, you know that like nauseous, queasy, bubbly feeling you get
Absolutely.
when you're about to do something big? Buddy, whoo, it was, man. Because what we were doing was so historic. But I think on a personal level, it was the first time I'd ever done a TV game. I'd always ever been a radio guy. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, do I calling a game on the radio is different than on TV. I can see on the TV. Radio, I have to paint the entire picture for you. So am I talking too much? Am I talking too little? What am I going to do? What do I do with my hands? The camera's right there, right? So there's so much going on. I never had an IFB in my ear. I never had the studio talking back to me. You know what I mean? So there were, and plus I knew that there were going to be so many eyes and ears on us. NHL Network picked up the game, so that game was on worldwide on the network. We were an ESPN alert. I mean, we were interviewed,
yes.
JT and I. So it was, man, I was so nervous. But then when you get in the press box and when you put the headset on, you're like, you know what? It is just a normal game. It's a game on February 17th in Winnipeg. We're leaving after the game. We have a game 2 nights from now in Calgary. Right? Like it's not like a one-off, you know what I mean? It's one game, a part of 82. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of helped calm me down a little bit. But to be able to do that with him, and yeah, you're right. I was doing a game with my boy. Like that's what it was. And it was, I think the first period I thought, you know, I am my worst critic, right? You are your toughest critic.
Yep.
So if you ask me, the first period was awful, and then I got better as the game went on. But a lot of people were very kind, and they were like, no. And I went back and I watched the game a couple of times, and I was like, wow, all right, actually that was pretty good for my first time on TV. So I was happy with it. But for us to share that spotlight together, and for us to be able to be a part of that first all-black broadcast crew, was huge, because it goes back to what we were talking about. Representation matters, right? I became a hockey fan because I saw 2 black players playing the sport. I'm hoping that there was somebody in South Seattle, in Detroit, in Minnesota, where JT's from, or anywhere else, who is a part of a historically underrepresented community, a marginalized population that wants to get involved with hockey. Mm-hmm. That's been told they're black, they don't belong in hockey. They're Hispanic, they don't belong in hockey. They're a woman, they're a girl, they don't belong in hockey. For everyone who's been told that, I hope that they saw that game and they saw the 2 of us doing what we love to do and doing what we enjoy doing. And they said, you know what? To hell with you guys. I'm gonna do this. I'm going to do this. So that is what I hope we inspired. I hope that's what our message was when we did that game. As far as the game goes, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't remember a whole lot about the game because you're so focused on the broadcast. And I remember I was talking to on the way to the airport, Dave Tomlinson, who is my analyst on the radio side, and then I was like, so what happened? I didn't know. I knew we scored a couple of goals. There was a couple of hits. Maybe there was a fight or 2. But you're so focused on the task at hand. You're so tuned in that I had to look back. And I went back and I watched the game. And I was like, oh, yeah, that did happen. Oh, wow, that was a pretty nice movie made there. Oh, yeah. So I think now that if I'm ever fortunate enough to again to be able to fill in for John when he's on a national assignment, I'm hoping, and I feel like I'll be a bit more comfortable now that I've done it before.
Get the first one out.
And get the first one out of the way. But that's the one thing that people are like, what's the one thing that you remember most about the game? I was like, I don't remember anything. I don't remember a lot of what happened. I think we lost 4-2. I think the score was 4-2.
That sounds right, actually, yeah.
But so that was a weird part because I was so dialed in that I forgot to just kind of, you had such a narrow view, right?
Yeah.
You want to kind of widen it up a bit. So
stop and smell the roses
exactly,
to an extent.
Exactly.
Wow.
So I'm gonna be smelling the roses a bit more next time I do this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to continue that, talking about John going on assignment, obviously JT, your buddy Dave, adding somebody new to the crew this offseason. What can you say about that crew? Because I know I talked about it. I gave you guys your flowers in a way. On the same side of it, I know the Mariners broadcast crew, Rick, Dave, Aaron Goldsmith, Mike Blowers. It's the same thing. But what, as someone that's part of a group like that, what can you say about, because I think I was reading about it as well, is like when you go to a job and your coworkers are so fun to be around, again, it doesn't become a job anymore. What is that like? Because I think you talk about Ryan, at least being in the, the interviews after the game. Ryan, great to speak with. Ryan posted a video of our buddy John dancing on Twitter. That went a little bit viral. What can you say about that group? Because you've got guys like JT, who I believe had just stepped off the ice in a way, coming into the booth. Your story that we've been telling here. John Forslund obviously doesn't necessarily need the introduction. Dave spending time on the ice as well. Mm-hmm. It's a unique group, So what can you say about having just so many different perspectives in the box?
We're a really close, really tight group, and I think that because there are so many different backgrounds. So you've got John Forslund, who is arguably one of, if not the most respected broadcaster in the history of this sport. You've got Doc Emmerich, you've got Jim Houston, you've got Bob Cole, Harry Neal. You've got some great guys, and John Forslund is going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm surprised he's not already, to be honest with you. But so you've got him, and to be able to learn from one of the best to ever do it on a daily basis, to be able to share a glass of wine with him, and to be able to have meals with him, and to talk to him on a daily basis, I grew up watching John. I grew up emulating some of his calls, and he was the voice to a lot of games that I watched as a kid growing up. So that's awesome. JT Brown, I'd known who JT was just as a fan when he played in the NHL. So again, a little bit of that no cheering in the press box when I found out we were hiring JT Brown. I was like, holy JT Brown, I know JT Brown. So that was pretty cool, and I think because he just finished playing, he knows what today's NHL player is going through, right? Dave Tomlinson played in the NHL, played overseas, won 4 championships in Germany, 10 years over in Germany. He stepped off the ice a while ago, and he has that experience of some of the older guys. What does it take to make it in this league? What does it take to survive in this league? He used to work for the Vancouver Canucks, so he knows about Vancouver. He knows about being in a hostile media market when it comes to hockey. So he can handle anything that's thrown his way. And so him and I have become close. We're just a very close group. And John has said it multiple times. Dave has said it multiple times. Of all of the broadcast crews that they have been a part of, it seems like this is one of the more close-knit ones, where we go out to eat on the road, grab dinner. We hang out together, when we're home, right? So a lot of other crews, all right, see you at the rink. All right, yeah, well, we landed, see you at the rink tomorrow, whatever. Hey, what time do you want to grab dinner? Lobby at 5. Let's grab some dinner, grab a drink, and let's chat. So to be able to now not only call 3 people that I've looked up to professionally for so long, not only to call them colleagues, but to also call them friends, to have Dave and JT and John text me almost daily, like, how's your son doing? How's the wife doing? Right? Like that. John Forslund texts me, how's my kid? Like that's cool. So it's fun. It's fun working on that crew. And then I think JT and I having that bond of being not only black men in hockey, but black men in America, we share something as well. That's kind of both spoken and unspoken. So him and I have been able to foster a pretty close and tight relationship as well. So to have 3 people that not only you respect, but you like working with, and that you consider not only colleagues and coworkers, but you consider dear friends, I mean, it just makes your job that much easier. I've never, ever worked a day in my life doing this, and it's even more so now here in Seattle.
Yeah, and I, reflecting on, what you've told us about, those other three, I think that just improves the quality of the broadcasts, so.
Because you can tell when if I'm listening, if I'm watching, I can tell as a fan if you like your partner, right? Like, oh man, they really get along together. You can tell they're having a good time. It's easy to tell if I can't stand you, if I don't like you, if there's a rift. It's easy to tell. So when you have that tight, close relationship off the air, it's only going to translate on the air.
And yeah, so that's why, we're really lucky here in Seattle. The city of Seattle is fans of, the Kraken, whether it be, to have a group like you guys.
Absolutely.
So, with that being said, kind of getting close to wrapping it up here. With the inaugural season, I know we're approaching year 2, and obviously I'm sure that'll bring many new adventures, different results. What are, I guess, if you could nitpick a few of the different memories, your favorite memories from the season? Obviously, getting to the rink early before the game, sightseeing with Fitz was really cool to see the different parts of the state that you traveled to. Even, I think, did you leave the state?
Went to Alaska.
Okay, I thought you went up north. Or even some of the favorite calls talk about beating the Habs, for that first win, the last regular season win that technically should have been the last game, but because of all the push-arounds, different moments, obviously beat some pretty darn good hockey teams up here in Seattle, even the eventual Cup champions here late in the season. What are some of the things that I guess you kind of look at if we're scanning the entire 21-22 campaign, what are you going to take going forward, in the memory of yours?
I think the number one overall memory that I'm going to have is that first game against Vancouver, the 23rd of October, the home opener. Because for me, that was, although I'd done a handful of preseason games before, that was my first NHL regular season broadcast. So to see the culmination of all of that hard work, of that lifelong goal, that lifelong dream come to fruition, that was cool. I'd be lying to you if I said there weren't some tears on the table at the beginning of the game there. So I think number one, that was it for me. Number two, December 1st, my first game back in Detroit. My mom was there. I had some family there. Grew up a Wings fan. It wasn't the old building, but it was still being able to do what you love, to call a game in your hometown. I mean, buddy, that was so cool. That was so much fun. My mom had like a little message up on the jumbotron. It was really nice. Again, more tears. I'm an emotional guy. I've become a little bit. I've become more comfortable expressing my emotions as an adult. Like over the last 5+ years, right? Like, it's okay. It's okay to shed some tears. It's okay. It's fine.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, tears were shed there. And then, so those were my two personal memories, right? But I think just overall, and this is going to sound so cliche, but I think just the fact that we did it.
Yeah.
We brought the National Hockey League to Seattle, a city that hasn't had a winter sport since 11. When did the Sonics leave? I know it's kind of bitter. I'm sorry.
This is 8.
8, okay.
8.
I think it was 2008 when the Sonics left. So you bring a winter sport to the city for the first time in 12 years, over 12 years. You introduce a new community, potentially, new fans to something new, to a new sport. To see all of the Kraken hats and shirts and flags and license plate borders and decals and stickers, I can go on. We set jersey records, right? Like we set jersey sales records. And to see that type of response to see a team that had multiple 7-game losing streaks still continue to sell out every single night, and to have the fans supporting this team like they did, that is going to be what I will take the most out of that first season, is the love and the support and the passion that the community, the entire region, not just Seattle, but Oregon, Idaho, Washington, Alaska, parts of Montana, the entire league took notice of Seattle. And it's only going to get stronger. This team's only going to get better. So that's what I'm taking from that first season, was just the fact that we did the damn thing. We did it. We launched the team, and it was a success. It was a success in so many ways. And again, I get it. The on-ice product, we wanted more wins. I understand that. But when you put into perspective what else we as an organization were able to accomplish, if you ask me, I think the wins were just icing on the cake. That was just gravy, I think. We were able to do something so much more important than winning on the ice. I think we won in the community, and we won off the ice. Now we're going to win on the ice.
Yeah, I mean, I could sit here and we could talk about, Burakovsky, all that sort of stuff, but to go back to it, we're going to look back in Kraken history. We'll have those, here even in 5 years, right? Go back and look at some of those inaugural season memories. But I'll tell you this, as someone who was working retail for Jersey Launch Day, right? South Lake Union, the store that's no longer there because it was only a temporary thing. We had, the jerseys were there, they were out, it was a whole big thing. You're getting them customized. Some people, I'll just get the blank one. That's all I need, which I understand. But you're getting people, I'm a Sharks fan. I'm a Chicago fan. People from all over. Oh, we came from Germany. People, that last game of the year, we had this nice family that came just to see Philip Grubauer.
Yeah.
Just, to see the scope of the sports world pay attention to this city for its hockey team. And again, wins or not, however it went, it's their first year. The Seahawks didn't make the playoffs until year 7 or whatever. So
hopefully it doesn't take us that long. But.
Yeah, no, I would, but no, it was incredible to see that the scope of how things went, because I talked to these people on the concourse. Oh, where are you from? I saw Atlanta Thrashers jerseys hanging around.
One of the most underrated. I would give anything if I could have an old Atlanta Thrashers jersey, man.
It's, just to see the variety of people, the walks of life, the different areas, different parts of the state, let alone different parts of the country, that people were paying attention, So that was pretty incredible to see. And again, I'll let you go ahead, man, celebrate that stuff.
Yes.
Because you've got your stamp on history. So I guess to sort of wrap things up and to look at things, obviously we talked about at the beginning about hockey being a sport that, the price disparity is hard for some people, for a good amount of people. Similar with baseball, it's like I can't buy a bat and a glove, and then I got to go buy some balls to hit with. Same thing, I got to buy a stick, a puck, I got to get, pads. But also that in relation, and then I know that this was when you were, just a youth, but it's a white boy sport. You want to get away from that, right? You want, obviously there's the whole hockey is for everyone, but I guess as a half white, half Filipino man, as well as someone who's in media, and even just someone who enjoys the game, how can we continue? I guess however, because I know it's hard to ask one person that, because I think it's got to be a group thing sometimes. How do we continue to get away from that? And to really make it, because again, you can say hockey is for everyone, and I think it was said in that interview you guys did, but just making that reality. How can, I guess, baby steps, right? Because it's not going to happen just like that. How can we continue to improve it, whether it's, in the communities, going down and talking to kids about the sport of hockey and getting them involved at a young age, having the rinks up at Northgate, stick and puck, going out there and learning the game, having instructors. What baby steps, I guess, would you, if I were to put you on the spot here, be able to put in place so that we can, I guess, set the seeds for that the sport to grow as we continue on? Because again, can't happen overnight, right?
I think that's just it. I think you have to, we as an organization need to continue being members of the community, continue going in the community, setting up learn the plays, going into underrepresented communities and showing that, hey, you are welcome. You are allowed in the sport. I think on an individual level, it's up to people like myself and JT and folks who have been told our entire lives that we didn't belong here to continue to buck that tradition and say, no, you belong here. You are allowed. Your voice is welcome. Your voice is allowed and belongs within this space. And I also think it's up to the entire hockey community to uplift each other. And I say that to say hockey has a reputation sometimes of being a kind of a please like my sport kind of area, right? So, you don't know much about hockey. You go to a game. Oh, how many quarters are left? There's no quarters, idiot. Right?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? They don't know, right?
Yes.
If you don't know, educate. Talk to someone. Foster that love for the game. I've seen that exact example so many times of people who are trying to get involved, who want to know more, but they're shut down. They're turned away before they can even get through the door. So I think that's as a culture, as a hockey culture, we in the sport need to do a better job. The collective we need to do a better job of fostering that love for our game, that interest in our game. The NHL and we can even, and now going to from a diversity standpoint, the NHL has done a good job in recent years in trying to spread that message and trying to foster that diversity and that growth. But obviously there's a ton more that can be done. And I think you've got the Hockey is for Everyone, you've got the Hockey Diversity Alliance, you have teams like Seattle who are very intentional in their hiring processes. The Kraken are 26% BIPOC, people of color, and I think we're just under 50% female in our organization, hiring people who are representative of the communities that you play in, that you live in. So those are the ways that I think we can continue to help grow this sport. And again, like I said before, your intention is never to, I never set out to be the first, right? I never said I want to be the first black broadcaster in the NHL. But the fact that I find myself in this position, I now owe it to the community, I owe it to the sport, but I think more importantly, I owe it to myself to be, whether unintentionally, intentionally, consciously or subconsciously, I owe it to myself to be that figure, that influence that a lot of kids may not have. I did not have a lot of positive black influences within the game of hockey to look up to when I was a kid. But now that I find myself in this position, it is on me, and it is on JT, and it is on the countless number of black folks that we have working in our organization to say, no, you come on, you belong here, you're welcome here, we want you here, we need you in this space. And I think that is where we can start, is by bringing people along with us, not tearing people down when they try to enter this space. And I think that's where we have to start. We have to start there, and then I think the rest will grow. Because you're right, it's not going to happen overnight, and it can be easy to say the NHL or this big entity needs to do this big overarching thing, right? It can start small. It can start on a team level. It can start on an individual level about bringing these people into our space.
So yeah, I mean that's what I was curious about, right? Because obviously you and I are not going to share the same experiences growing up viewing hockey the same way, right? So it's just obviously wanting to grow that sport and wanting to continue to push it, because really, I mean, the puck never really, it stops, but just the action in hockey.
Eventually.
Yes, eventually, right? Find the back of the net, get melted down, all that. Exactly. But just to be able to continue to grow it, because really you fall in love with it and you're like, hey, you want other people to fall in love with it too.
That's right.
And you don't, like you were saying, you don't want people to be discouraged. So, I appreciate you coming out to the studio here today, coming and, rapping back and forth. That's all. Felt like what we were doing, right? But I guess if you were to sales pitch people that, oh, I'm not too sure about hockey, I don't understand it yet. I guess what's your sales pitch for those, maybe, whether they're in Seattle or not, and they just like Everett Fitzhugh, to watch this upcoming season or continue to follow your journey along? How would you, what's your sales pitch here? I guess you're putting your toddler wiki hat on and, sell sand in a desert, I guess. But how are you pitching this upcoming season, or just yourself as a man in broadcast?
So my sales pitch, talking to you, America, my sales pitch for this upcoming season it's simple. The Seattle Kraken are building something historic here in Seattle. The first NHL team in this city in over 100 years. The Kraken are very intentional and very deliberate in how they're doing that. So, yes, the team struggled the first year. We, as an organization, as a team on the ice, will be better in year two. But I think more than that, we want our fans to feel part of us. We don't want our fans to feel left out. This is a very inclusive organization. So it doesn't matter your race, your color, your sexual orientation, your gender, your religious beliefs. I can go on and on and on and on. You belong in this sport. You belong in this fan base. We welcome your voice. We welcome your opinion. And that is the important part that I want to get across about the Seattle Kraken, is that we value you, we welcome you, and you are allowed. That's it.
Wow. Couldn't write a script for that. Everett, again, I appreciate you coming out. This has been something we've been working on. And again, just to see you up in the press box, to just be, hey, it's Charles, and then boom, it's Everett. To see you around, hopefully seeing you at some more Mariners games, whenever we get to teach Wesley about, batting average and all that.
Baby boy, I got tickets to the Tigers doubleheader in October. Might be a little bit early for baby's first baseball game. We'll have to maybe wait till next season, but
it's coming.
He is coming. I'm going to come see you. We're going to get him his first set of baseball cards.
Oh, yeah.
All right?
We'll get something set up.
Yeah. So, no, Wesley, he's going to be hitting home runs. He's going to...
Power hitter, huh?
Oh, 100%.
Looking forward to that, and looking forward to having you on the airwaves for years to come, and then
Thank you.
Getting you on TV, and after we got the first one out of the way, right? So, no, again, appreciate it, and looking forward to the rest of, Kraken hockey going forward. Obviously, the second year is coming up, but who knows what the rest entails. So I want to thank Everett again for coming out here today, and I hope you all were able to learn a little bit about Everett Fitzhugh.